Perfect.
Hello and welcome to Commsverse. This session is called Microsoft Teams in Education.
No, it's not.
It's not.
It's not. That's my bad.
On the deck.
Yes, it is.
This session is called Accelerating Teams Adoption in an Ever-Changing Workplace. Today's presenter is Karuana Gatimu from Microsoft. Over to you, Karuana.
That's great. Hello. How is everyone doing today? We are going to click past that and we will update that at the right time. I'm so happy to be with all of you today. Thank you so much for all of the work that has gone into bringing Commsverse to everyone. I'm perfectly clear on how much effort it takes of the organizing team and all of the sponsors that have really leaned in. So I want to say thank you to everyone and hello to everyone. My name is Karuana Gatimu. I work in Teams Engineering. I run our customer advocacy group, and I'm here today to talk with you about adoption and everything that is going on in our current reality. So let's hop into that topic because everything has changed. We are currently living in a new reality, and for many of us, this has been a change that happened very abruptly because of coronavirus, but that's not the only change that is happening, right? There is racial unrest. There are other issues that are going on in the world, and that was already on top of the pace of change that we were dealing with in the technology sector. But now, more than ever, for those of you who are in the change management space, or thinking about how to get the most value out of your investment in Microsoft tools and capabilities, we have to deal with the fact that we're really dealing with remote everything. And this has a very strong implication, not just from a business operations perspective, but also from the human perspective. I really want you, as we go through this presentation today, to try to think and embrace of a humans first approach to driving change and adoption, because the workers that we're supporting today are in a very different situation than they were at the end of February or the beginning of January of this year. There's a heightened sense of anxiety and uncertainty. There are stressors from having to balance work and home, and challenges with regard to systems and access to data and security that we have to be mindful of as change professionals. What this also means is that many people have a level of change fatigue that is really unprecedented. And so we have to incorporate these new ideas into how we approach this work. Change management and driving adoption has always been, pretty hard. But now we do actually have some clear mandates because of these changes. So the shift to remote work, we certainly saw it in Microsoft Teams, but all across the Microsoft 365 ecosystem, the surge in usage of our services because of everyone moving to remote work. But we also need to be mindful of secure remote work and this evolving security landscape. And so our new kind of mantra is that secure remote work scenario. We want people to be able to rest assured that their data and their information and the work that they're doing is safe as they're doing it from a variety of locations, and also that we as IT professionals have the capability to manage this sort of distributed workforce. It's worth calling out that the IT professionals in our business right now, we've gone through so much in the last few months, and sometimes people don't realize how difficult it is to manage distributed systems and people in this way. But I just want to give a shout out to all of you who I know have been working, many hours and trying to make sure that your remote workers, from executives to frontline workers, are having the best experience possible. This is no small feat. I've been very impressed by the work that I've seen across the industry from a variety of sectors and people. And that's why I'm embracing this humans first approach, because it's really the people at the center of these systems that are allowing things like this event to take place. The willingness to be agile, to learn new information, to change business processes. That's one of the reasons that these events can continue, hosted on the M365 services, specifically Microsoft Teams. And that's it's really a Herculean effort that people have gone into. So development is also remote. So if you're a developer, you're supporting a group of developers out there, that process of developing in a distributed way and across organizations is also different. And it's not the same as the stand-up that you have when you're in the same room together, right? There is a connectedness that you feel when you're in a physical room together that we are still working on how to create and how to extend into the virtual and remote world. But remember that it's definitely more than meetings. We have to think about extending the capabilities. Many folks rapidly in what we call these rapid deployment motions. And the rapid deployment motion, while useful for getting people able to continue to operate in online meetings, it doesn't take into account really doing some of the analysis and the work that's required to make sure that business processes are evolving when you roll out a product like Microsoft Teams. That sort of planning and that engagement with business process leaders has always been critical to the success of the use of a product like Teams and all of the other connected services that come with it, like SharePoint and OneDrive and Power Platform. And so we hopped over that part when we simply pulled the big red cord and got everybody online. We're now in a different space. So what we were suggesting is that now we have an opportunity to address the situation with these three pillars. And you're going to hear me talk about this a lot over the next few months because we're very much, and some of this is going to be different depending on where you are in the world. But certainly in the United States, rather than doing what we were calling second wave readiness for COVID, we're in continued operations because of the way that our particular country is dealing with the situation. But for the rest of you out there, you may be thinking about, okay, what does the now look like, right? We're not going back to how things were before this outbreak. So we must navigate the now in a way that empowers our employees and organizations to adapt. And that capability for adaptation, that agile ability, taking that humans first approach and focusing on broader solutions will help people stay productive, maintaining business continuity, but I would also say maintain their health and well-being. Health and well-being is a critical part of what's happening as we plan what's next, right? So what's for your company? What your priorities were 6 months ago and what your priorities are today are likely different. Speaking for myself, they certainly are. And so consequently, you want to be able to optimize the value that you're getting from Microsoft Teams and Office 365 as you begin to restart customer demand, generate customer demand, for instance, roll out new types of offers depending upon your segment, things of that nature. So I have to say that I do not know of an organization that has not been touched or changed by this situation. We find ourselves in a unique situation here because of that. And it does mean that we have new opportunities, new growth areas, and we can shape the kind of future that we want. And I encourage us to shape that with our workers and our customers firmly at the center of the strategy, and investing in the folks who have stayed with your company and your organization through this transition, and really driving healthy engagement with those people and your own employees through the use of Teams and other capabilities, and really focusing on growth. So this next slide shows some example scenarios of the types of processes that you want to think about, but I'm going to bring this into specifically the Teams realm. But these strategies and these things that I've set up here as the context completely are relevant about SharePoint, or you're thinking about Power Platform. I encourage you to really embrace the better together motion of Microsoft Teams. That's where the sweet sauce and the power comes together. So wherever you may be in your rollout of Microsoft Teams, we have help for you to get the most value out of it. And we're here for you to support your business outcomes. And I'm really happy. I mean, I've never had a better job, frankly, or a harder one, but a better job that's focused on helping others. And that's really what the customer advocacy group and all the folks inside of Microsoft who focus on the service, the features, and helping you get value. That's what we're about. And so we want to make sure that you are taking advantage of those capabilities as you think about adoption. Adoption sometimes has, a little bit of a bad rap. It's not fluffiness. This is really about business process transformation and increasing the digital literacy of your employees and customers. Really, if you think about it, we haven't invested in digital literacy very well over the last decade or so. The biggest push around digital literacy was when we launched email all those years ago. And many people have kind of been thrown to the wolves, if you will, with their technology enablements. And that's why there's a good deal of skepticism and customer, dissat around services, cloud services, because people assume that it should just be and I should be able to figure it out on my own. But that's not actually how it works. And so part of this conversation is also about governance. So I'm going to talk about governance today in the context of these new scenarios and in these rapid deployments. This is my quote. I talk about it everywhere because it's so true. Good governance precedes great adoption. Our goal as professionals in this space should be to deliver frictionless robust IT manageability, that people need to have confidence that their data is secure, that there's appropriate hygiene within their M365 tenant, and these things can be achieved, and you can have this and satisfied users at the same time. So as I go along here, I welcome your questions. So please definitely put them in the IM window. There's a breakout session after the fact, but I will definitely leave time for questions at the end as I go through these, different resources and capabilities that we have. So please definitely do that. So I do want to talk about, I always like to lead with the resources first so that you can follow along at home. A phrase which means something different today than it did the last time I used it. Our resources at about adoption is the central place where you will find information on governance and adoption of all of the Microsoft services. This is one of my pet projects, I'll say, really gathering together adoption resources in one place. And I'm actually going to hop over and take a look at this site now. This is the version of the site today that exists. And so you can click on these various areas to find information. And I want to encourage you to look at the overall M365 adoption guide. We've added new content around document collaboration, OneDrive, and Outlook mobile, as well as a security and compliance adoption guide, which is really, quite important. And many of our adoption guides are in what we call the flipbook format. Some of you may have seen this before. It's been through a recent update. We've added additional content and information here. But these scenarios and helping people to understand how they should be thinking remote work is important. And these pages here are new in the last couple of months, post-COVID. And we wanted to make sure that people had easy ways of getting the information that they need to think about how to support their remote workers. And so a day in the life of a remote worker is, quite useful in being able to, really take a look at how people should be thinking about working. It's part of our standard day in the life series, and you can take a look at other day in the life options that are here. For the IT project manager, for instance, or these one sheets, a day in the life of a marketing professional. And these are great leave behinds. So even though you may be driving adoption of Teams in a new way remotely, people still need the physical. There are different learning modalities that you must take into account when you are driving change and driving the adoption of a new service. With them, what's in it for that person? Why should they be learning something? And of course, in our case, they need to be learning more about Microsoft Teams so that they can continue to remain effective. But beyond that, they also need the physical components, and also remember that not everyone can learn through a video. That's why we have articles that are available alongside the video content that we create. And we allow people to download things like day in the life items that they could even print at home. They have something physical, because that tactile hands-on learning is a very powerful and popular way for people to actually understand how to work in a piece of software. So even though you're not in a standard class with folks, I encourage you to think of those interactive ways and making sure that you're engaging all the various learning modalities as you take people through the content. So this is an example of some of the updates we've made. And today I would also like to show a preview of the new site. So this is how it looks today, this kind of navigation that also has direct access to the various assets, and then also ability to get to some of our core programs and training assets. But we are going to be updating this site. And we feel like it will help people be able to find the content they want depending upon the product that they're rolling out, but we'll also be including scenarios here, what we call customer solution areas. So maybe you're driving event management or a particular type of new employee onboarding. You'll be able to click on icons here that have those sorts of things, but we also feel like everybody's at a different place in their adoption journey. And so if you're getting started, you're going to want to see assets around that. If you're looking to drive more engagement in your organization, you want to see things in that level. So each of the various areas have assets that are associated with the different of top level functions that you're doing as an adoption specialist. And I'm really excited about this. This will be out this month. And we'll continue to work on the different content that's available here from the navigation at the top, as I mentioned, those solution areas and what have you. It will also bring together multiple of the communities that we have available, the main Microsoft technical community, the Power Platform community, and our developer community. So you can really have a one-stop shop experience. And we want to help you find new information by including it in these carousels at the top, and we'll have additional features after as we launch it. But I'm super excited about continuing to invest in this area and making it easier for people to find value. And the focus of this site is also not on the deep technical IT pro guidance that you will find on docs.microsoft.com. That, of course, is connected within our flipbooks. When you get to the end here, you can take a look at the IT professional information that's available, and that goes directly to our docs infrastructure. But there's a sweet spot in between being a deep technical IT pro and being a business leader that many of us change managers fall into, and that's why you need to have this information attached to the business scenario itself. So really excited about the new site. I'm happy to share it with you today. It is a preview that I haven't done for any other audience, so you are special. And as a thank you for the work that you're doing to participate in this event. So let me go back to the deck now and talk about the actual framework itself. So this is the framework for driving adoption of Microsoft Teams. And what we've seen is a compression of these phases. So in a pre-COVID world, maybe you had, 60, 90 days to plan your Teams rollout, especially if you're doing a transition from Skype to Business to Teams. There's a lot of components there that you have to plan around, especially if you're including voice capabilities. But what we're seeing now is what we call these rapid deployments. And so what happened in startup was that people turned on the service and off they went. And now we're recommending that you go back and review those service policies and capabilities and the apps that are being used, to make sure that you're not a rapid deployment, but a secure one, and that's meeting the governance needs of your organization. But experimentation, that second phase, remains the same in the sense that now you need to map what your users are doing and the processes that you need to enhance to these new business scenarios. And then, of course, you're still continuing to do the scale motion work. But definitely it's that compression of that first phase and needing to go back and take a look at policies and procedures and potentially introduce governance that you did not do at the beginning. There are different types of governance within an IT organization and within a company. And depending upon your size, some of these things may or may not apply. But the complexity of the environment, whether you have 500 people or 100,000 people, in some regards, it's the same. You want that secure collaboration experience. And so you need to think about who can publish solutions, who can publish new line of business applications or apps like the M365 Learning Pathways tool that I'm going to talk about in a little bit. Who can find what? Like discovery, right? I can't just walk over to my boss Alex's desk to ask her something about a deck that she did. I now need to use Delve or Search or other tools to be able to find it. Now, of course, I can send her a chat and ask the same question, but isn't it great if I could self-serve that, especially when much of the remote workforce is in distributed time zones, right? When I need something, she may not be awake. Now, we happen to be, in real life in the same time zone, but I work with a lot of people around the world that aren't. And so discovery governance and being able to find information is certainly important. Then we have security, container and content, and change management governance as types. But we are going to focus on this container and content governance here. And I'm going to do a little bit of an overview. And I want to tell you in a resource link that we have here in the deck that will take all of the governance information I'm going to review and give you the deep dive and all the reference articles that are the how-to. So if you go to AK.MS Teamwork Governance, you will find that. All of that information will be integrated into our new adoption website. By the time I get to the end of July, you'll have one place to go. That'll be Microsoft Adoption, and you'll find governance and adoption information there. But we're working on that integration. But for those of you who want to know exactly how to do some of the things I'm about to talk about, you can use that link and it will get you that information. So many people don't know and don't think of what their principles for governance are supposed to be before they start driving adoption work. They think, oh, I want everyone to use Microsoft Teams. Well, how and why and when? Answering those questions for yourself, if you are the change owner of Microsoft 365 and Teams in particular, that's really important because I've found time and time again as I've done this work around the world that you have to have these guiding principles as touchstones to recenter yourself as you're making decisions and moving very quickly and making governance decisions. If you don't have these principles of what you're really trying to drive and the outcomes that you really want, you can get lost in the minutiae or capabilities and policies. And really, that's not the point, especially now. That humans first approach means that empowering the people is the point. So making sure the employees are having the right kind of experience. I know there's a lot of debate in the industry about self-service creation, but if you didn't see it already, we have announced the ability to create templates in Teams that will be launching very soon. There is a video about that on my show, Coffee in the Cloud, which you can find on YouTube. And those templates are really, I think, going to strike that beautiful balance between having it be open, which makes a lot of IT pros uncomfortable, and having it be totally closed or this kind of request system that is very detrimental to actual usage. Using lifecycle management is another really important piece of that, and I'm going to talk just a little bit about that. Also, governance and adoption are not a broad brush, right? This isn't spray paint that we want to just spray all over everything. No, we want to have some intention around what are really high value assets in my organization and what is, a team like myself and a few members of my group pulling together a morale event, right? That is not as high value as something like, for instance, a product specification. So I encourage you to think about the different types of teams that are being created in your organization through the lens of what is valuable, super valuable, very important content to your company, and what is something that simply facilitates people to work together, but in a secure and improved experience like Microsoft Teams. Because at the end of the day, the reason I say good governance precedes great adoption is if the governance processes are set up properly on the back end, then they're somewhat seamless to the end user, but they empower them to automatically do the right thing, to save in SharePoint to use Teams as opposed to creating shadow IT, right? When people get too much friction, they always will go and find a tool that will work for them. And that may not be one that your IT department has blessed. And so consequently, protecting those assets is a key pillar, but doing it by having a seamless experience so that people aren't simply randomly emailing things around the internet or using other competing technologies that don't have the level of security that M365 has, which I really feel like is a differentiator. And ensuring accountability is where some of our training tools come in. Every year at Microsoft, I have to go through a data security training, and I have to type my name and assert that I am accountable as an individual for the security of data at Microsoft that I interact with. It's not just some corporate or IT, accountability. And this really changed over the last, I'll call it, few years, but it's very important now in a post-COVID world that we take accountability for the links we click on, for the files that we download, and for the experiences that we're doing our work in, since we are not on the corporate internet. Since we're not on the corporate internet, we're in these distributed locations. So as we think about that, that's something that we can do in M365 Learning Pathways. And I'm going to hop over and show a little bit of that and then come back to this governance topic. M365 Learning Pathways is our free training solution that we launched quite some time ago, actually. And it uses a modern SharePoint Online communication site template along with content that we deliver from support.microsoft.com. And it's easily installed inside your tenant, and you can drive training and awareness with this content. And what it does is it helps you get out of the content business or only focused on custom content like a company security playlist or training without having to worry about creating content for Word or Excel or Teams, products all of which are changing almost every day. It streams this content directly to your tenant from ours, but you have control of it, right? So if your organization isn't using Sway or Yammer or what have you may a different email client that you're also supporting. You can turn off the different types of product content that we are streaming directly to you. So you still have control of how people are being trained and with what information, but it provides you with the infrastructure to also build your own custom playlists. It is a web part. It is a combination of a site template and a web part. So the web part can also simply be installed in your environment and put on any other any other site in your SharePoint environment. So if you already have a training portal, you can leverage Learning Pathways content in that training portal. We're also happy to say that this month we're also exiting beta of our M365 LP Teams app. So this is a custom app where you can bring the Learning Pathways content directly into Teams, as well as links to other company intranet sites that you may have. It is currently available out on our GitHub instance at the link shown here, and it's very configurable. So you can change the links up in the way the experience shows up and then pin it on that left navigation of Teams. It's very, very, very good thing to be able to do, especially as you're rolling out Teams itself. Now let me hop over right now and show you what this looks like in practice. So I am going to go here over to my Learning Pathways experience. So this is a demo tenant that I have. This is the community infrastructure that we've built to do our own events, and we've installed Learning Pathways on it to help people learn more about Office 365 as they do that. Now, this is a standard installation. I have not done a lot of customization, but as you can see, this is how it comes out of the box, and it is a standard SharePoint site. So all of the things that you can do to SharePoint, you can do to this Learning Pathways site template. As I did a rapid deployment support over the last few months, I did a tremendous amount of this work in terms of customizing pages and helping people have these rapid deployment playlists. Built into it is this web part, and this web part basically gives you access to all of the training playlists that we curate at Microsoft. And I want to remind you, this is free. This doesn't cost a thing. You can install this tomorrow. It doesn't require anything but some IT admin rights for the installation, but then it's just a standard SharePoint site. So if you don't happen to be the tenant administrator for your tenant, you would ask your IT admin to do this installation, but then they would hand this site, as I'm showing it to you, over to you, and then you can configure it in any way. It's really quite functional in that way. But you can see here that I have product content of different types of products. We're continuing to add content every day. We also added some work remotely playlists very recently. This is new content that we added as we worked on the COVID surge, and making sure that people understand some of these best practices for collaborating with M365 or working remotely. And when I click into a playlist, you'll see that I have a video asset, I have written text, and oftentimes I will have additional things that I can learn after that. And if I just continue to navigate here, it gives that getting started information that folks need. Now, this is directly out of the box, right? I haven't done anything to this. It came, directly from the solution installation. And you can see the type of content that's involved in this particular playlist. But there's more than one way to deliver this information. Maybe I want to show this on another page, or maybe I want to go into the administrative experience, which I get to from here in this home navigation, and make some changes. This Admin Success Center is something that's reasonably new in learning pathways. If you've been looking at this for a little while, you may not have seen this yet. When I demoed last year, like at Ignite, for instance, I don't believe I showed this. We've done a lot of investment feedback to help people understand what's new and what's changed. So every month we're doing new information into the content sets, and then we have big drops that we do once a quarter. And so being able to see what's new, you can look here and it will give you the most recent one. Was this April 2020 content update, and it gives you the information of exactly what has been added into the solution. And you can even go back and see the November content update if you wanted to do that, but it allows you to keep tracking that information. And then we have particular content around driving adoption and measuring impact, and then how to customize learning pathways. There's a built-in playlist that gives you right here in the experience information about how to continue to customize it and the best next steps we think you should do after you've installed the template in your environment. So we've tried to bring together in this solution. This is a partnership between my group and Microsoft Teams, our friends over in the SharePoint engineering team, and our friends in what we call the Marvel group that creates all of the learning content for support.microsoft.com. Together, we came together. Together, we designed this solution, and we continue to get feedback from everyone that helps us bring in more features into the area. You can give us feedback and support and get support on it. I should say that this is an open source solution, and so we share this with other partners in the ecosystem. It is SharePoint as a service. Obviously, you can get support with through your various support organizations, but they don't support learning pathways directly. This is released on GitHub, and you can put any issues or questions in our list there on GitHub, and we will respond to them. What's really exciting is that as we've said, for some time later this month, we will support multiple languages, and you'll see that announcement come out later this month. We talked about it again at Ignite, that we've been working on delivering that, and we were behind the multilingual features of SharePoint Online. And so we're very excited about the fact that we'll be able to support multiple languages directly in the experience. And the last thing I want to show here too is that this is just a page in SharePoint. And this page in SharePoint has content directly for Microsoft Teams. This content has been increased dramatically over the last few months, but especially even after COVID, to add more playlists for people to learn about Microsoft Teams. So let's step back for a second. I've got this great product content. This is fantastic. But what if I want to build a custom playlist that includes some content, but as well as other content that I may have throughout throughout my SharePoint environment. I can do that. So if I think about employee onboarding, or I think about creating additional information, all I have to do is go to one of these pages and I can edit it, and I can point to a particular playlist if I want to. So I have controls up here that allow me also to find the deep link to this. So here is the deep link to the entire Microsoft Teams repository of training information. I could copy this and put it elsewhere in my environment as long as I have this web part installed, and embed that training content along with other information. So on your core intranet, if you're talking about driving of your rollout of Microsoft Teams, then you can embed this information in here. I can also make further changes to that, and I'm going to let this load, but I can make further changes to the types of content that I want to have inside the experience. So, as you think about these pillars here, of ensuring accountability or protecting assets or empowering employees, that training content becomes really important, because again, it's not the same as being able for me to ask the person who sits next to me, hey, how do I do this? And that's normally how people learn in most offices. There's always someone who knows the tools better than another, and that person becomes the go-to person. Well, now with Learning Pathways, you can have that site become that go-to person, and you can help customize that experience for people as you think about this. Now, to go quickly back to the governance topic, I also want to make sure that everybody's really clear about the fact that to govern Microsoft Teams and to drive that healthy adoption, you need to govern Office 365 groups. And again, that has changed over the last few months in this business environment. This is our standard method of looking at the group governance model. So you can see here at the top that at that company level, we're likely using SharePoint intranet sites and communication and team sites, even hubs, to share information, depending upon how large your company is. That's one-to-many publishing. So that's me talking to everyone in Microsoft, or me talking to everyone in Microsoft Teams. As we continue to expand, how many people can be inside of Teams, you'll see this melding, this better together story become more of a reality. We're just like we're doing with the Teams app, SharePoint sites and those pages are really have an elegant experience inside of Teams. So the lines will blur from a product perspective, but the idea from a governance and adoption perspective of having a single source of truth for information right now is really important. I've seen many companies, the ones really embracing some best practices, lay out remote work hubs, a page or a SharePoint site that will allow people to share information about remote work, and in one location for people to find. And that is also kind of along the lines of a department or a division site, where it's a few people, you're publishing a lot of information, but you're also incorporating conversation. And whether that's in Microsoft Teams or in Yammer, having that ability for people to ask questions alongside their content is very important. And then, of course, then you have the standard work groups. And these are the teams that people just spin up because they need to get something done. We definitely recommend that you allow people to do that, but you want to be answering these questions as you go back to either tighten up your rapid deployment or just to think about how you want to do this overall. These are the kinds of questions that you want to be asking yourself. Who can create those groups? Are you going to embrace naming conventions? What types of meeting capabilities will you allow? Can people do cloud recording? Are you supporting audio conferencing and just standard dial-in, those sorts of things? And what is your guest access policy? And before this situation, I feel that guest access was an important topic already to facilitate, the types of collaboration that's super common nowadays. But now it's even more important to have a salient guest access policy where you're allowing people to come together in one collaboration experience, much like we're doing here today, and working together for a common goal. But there is the ability to control that. right? This isn't the Wild West. Teams is maturing, and so is the idea of guest access and the way that it implements itself within Teams. We've had plenty of feedback about improvements that we can make there, and it has definitely been one of our top priorities to continue to streamline that experience. When you joined today into the Tenant, you would have seen some of the results of that work in terms of the join experience, and more of that is coming in our roadmap. And those guests also, you have to decide, what kind of apps are they going to have, and where can they actually, work. Using Microsoft as an example, some of our highest priority teams actually don't allow guests, external guests, for where those high product specifications or, corporate strategy documents, things of that nature, guests are not allowed, or they have to be approved as they're coming into the experience. But for the standard event production team that I run with a bunch of folks, there's no friction there. I can add guests at will. I just have to review them on a regular basis. So within the teamwork governance link that I provided you, I gave you insights into how you can enable self-service. Again, this uses the Microsoft Tenant as an example, but it's the same, for you as well, in being able to control, who can create that team site or that team in Microsoft Teams. And you can also set those expiration policies. I do know that people have changed those expiration policies based on the current situation. They are longer in some cases because, of the situation we find ourselves in. But I do want to call out also that it's not so much about the fact that everyone is home at this point. It's that we are now supporting a hybrid workforce where some people are working from home and some people are back, especially if they're essential workers, back in their locations. And as we think about those essential workers and their ability to work clearly, we want to make sure that we're also incorporating those mobile users. And Teams, I believe, is a fantastic way to keep your mobile and first line workers and those essential staff connected to the organization and to what is happening on a day-to-day basis. So these custom policies that you can configure will allow you to really control and keep hygiene in your organization. But at the end of the day, whatever particular types of governance policies you're doing, you need to come back to the plan of how you align Teams adoption to the scenarios in your organization. And as you think about the different types of scenarios that we are continuing to support, and how they've changed, again, think about curbside delivery, think about the essential worker, think about how obviously healthcare has transformed so greatly, using Teams meetings and also to some extent live events to drive communication and collaboration. These features are no longer nice to haves. They are essential at maintaining a healthy, well-balanced, informed, connected workforce. And we feel so strongly about the fact that, investing in that digital literacy and making sure that people have, access to the training that they need when they need it in a free way, and helping all of you not be in that business, but relying on partners and Microsoft to deliver that basic content and then being able to incorporate your own. We feel like that's a great strategy to bring people together. And then the third pillar of it, of course, is our communities. Events like this one, the Microsoft Technical Community, our Driving Adoption Forum that I run out there. You can come out there and learn from each other. Every month we have our Office 365 Champions Call, and we always skip July. Our next one will be in August. And that's where you can come and bring your ongoing adoption questions to that group, and not just learn from Microsoft, but learn from all of the people who are doing this sort of work. And I'm going to pop over here and take a look real quick to show you that page. This will be the new page that you're looking at here when it loads up. But that Champions program is so important to learn from other real world experiences, right? And how you create a Champions program in your organization is some of the new tools that we'll be releasing also over the course of this month. So as we come together in August and for our August Champion Movement champion call, and then going into the fall, you're going to have more tools in your toolkit for building your own champions community in your own organization, and having some clear learning pathways, to use a phrase, of what does it take to be a champion? Like, what kind of knowledge do you need in Office apps? What do you need to know about cloud services? And then extending that idea of champions to being a teamwork champion. So, there's so much great information that is available in that community that I really invite all of you to sign up. And if you were going to do that, you would come here to our current Microsoft adoption site and click on the join button, and that will get you on the list. And then, of course, you can join us at our forum. So I feel like I've just whipped through a ton of information about driving adoption. But, at the end of the day, probably the most important thing to remember is that we're in this together. Together, we are going to find a way forward to craft that new future that we want to be able to see. We're going to chart this course together, and the entire team at Microsoft Teams, and certainly in my adoption group and my advocacy group, we are here to drive these communities, to provide support to them, and to help you go through these 3 pillars. We've got to navigate the now together and respectfully together, but we have to take accountability for planning what's next and shaping that future, because people look to us for that guidance. And I don't expect, general employees around the world to have to figure this out, how we drive adoption in these changing times. But I know that together we can do that. So I think with that, I will open it up for any questions that people may have, any questions you may have about learning pathways or the adoption communities that we have. Certainly happy to answer those questions now.
There's no questions in the queue. Just going to post a link to the survey and the breakout room. Everyone, don't be shy.
Nope, don't be shy. I'm here all the way from Olympia, Washington to speak with you today. So please do ask any questions you may have. I'd love to know if any of you are already using learning pathways or we're waiting for our multilingual release to use it. So if any of you have any feedback on that, that would be great.
I know our adoption department is looking at putting it into our plans for our adoption workshops and spaces and all that kind of stuff, and rollouts for big customers. So absolutely.
That's going to be great. I think the custom content is going to be really helpful, being able to, design those onboarding experiences, security training, even, how to get a new computer if it breaks down when you're working remotely. Like, it's little things like that I think people, sometimes forget about, as they're making this transition. We all think of the big stuff, but it's really the little things that cause the most frustration for people when they're trying to work from home and balance everything.
Yeah, it's all well and good having training from somebody else, but it's even better and more impactful when you have something from your leadership team or something, sponsorship down and stuff like that. So yeah, that custom content is definitely key.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the reasons to, this is a great question. I see a question. What do I suggest as far as customizing content based on user licensing? One of the things that we do see people do is they will turn on or off different workloads. So, if you have a business level subscription, you may not have certain capabilities of Yammer or other things, or maybe Sway. So yeah, and if you're referring to, for instance, there's a different license for frontline workers than there are for enterprise workers, or maybe only a subset of your enterprise has all the way to E5 with Power BI. You can make a page in SharePoint and create those playlists specifically for those folks. Oftentimes I will make a page that embeds the web part in a way that is for a specific role. So, the frontline worker, obviously in a company, you don't call it that, manufacturing or service technicians training page. And then you put those relevant training playlists on the page for those people. And remember, it's SharePoint underneath, so you've got all the flexibility in the world to create that. And so, you know, it's really done more at a page and a content level at this point. We will be supporting more audience targeting in the future. And if you look in the playlist generator, actually, there is a field for audience targeting, but it's there, but it doesn't do anything at this point. But that's a placeholder for our future capabilities to directly audience target within the web part, so you don't have to do some of this custom playlist work that I'm referring to. So definitely something to think about right now. Excellent question. Thank you for asking. I appreciate that. All right then.
Okay.
We'll call it a day.
Okay, so I've posted a link to the session survey, so please give feedback to our speaker. And I've also posted a link to the breakout room, so you can hang out with our speaker, ask any more questions that you may be too shy in the recording or something like that, and just have a good hangout and chat. Okay.
Absolutely. I'll be popping over there for anybody who has a question. Thank you so much, and thank you for having me.
Thank you.